Eugene Evers. I was in Vermont or Forest Grove, Oregon.
Oregon? What town again?
Forest Grove.
Forest Grove. So you stayed there pretty much.
I live on the farm where I was born.
Oh, you were born on the farm?
Oh, yes.
Wow.
My mother had 11 boys and 4 girls. Well, she had 11 boys and 3 girls in that house, and the last one was born in the hospital.
All right. And talking about birth, what was your date of birth?
10th of July, 1931.
And you married a long
I
time?
think 18 years.
18 years?
18.
1-8, okay. And you have Robert here?
Robert David. I have 8 children. David is the youngest.
Whoa. That's a big family. Wow.
Well, out on the farm, they used to do that.
You had grandkids?
I think about 16.
16
Is it,
grandkids.
they said 16, David? I think so.
Wow.
And some great-grandchildren.
Uh-huh. And your education? High school, college?
I went to high school. I went to one term of college, and then I ran out of money.
And 1 year of college.
One term. Only
One
one
term.
term.
Okay, we'll get through the basic stuff. What'd you do before going into the military? Work on the farm or?
On the farm.
On the farm.
Milked cows.
How many head of cows did you have?
Well, at that time, we used to have 30, 35 cows, and then the time you had the young stock and all, you had over 100 usually.
The little calves you had to milk and feed and all that?
Yeah.
Or feed them? My friend's a farmer. He works his butt off. He works a lot. But when were you drafted or enlist?
My brother was in the National Guard. When the Korean War started, they took him over there immediately with the Oregon National Guard. And he was in a medical clearing company. And he wrote home about 3 times. He said, "Gene, come over here, we need help." And see, that started in July of 50. And so in January 51, I ran into Portland, and I wanted to be in the Air Force, of course. I joined the Air Force.
So he enlisted into the Air Force.
They gave us
In Portland?
I ran into Portland, yeah. I borrowed my brother's car and went in there. It was quite a line of people who had to wait in line, you know, people just signing up for the Navy and the Air Force. And of course, they were drafting them in the Army at the time. So.
Right. After this video, remind me about Portland. Okay. So you joined the Air Force, and you went in as like a private or something?
I
or?
went in and they sent me to Denver. I went through, to San Antonio, Texas. Went through basic, and they sent me to Denver to camera school. You know, that's what you want to be. Took tests and
camera school, like
the camera
like video camera or
camera repairman.
Oh. Wow. They must have thought highly of you to get those cameras working. Okay, so you went to school to. Did they actually follow through and?
Okay, well, that's what they sent me to do. Well, I met some good buddies there, and I said, well, gosh, you know, we're going to be mounting cameras at airplanes and this type of thing. We aren't in danger. Let's go to Korea. We'll get some rank quicker. You know, you're overseas. Okay, so we did.
So you offered your services for Korea or
We
something?
offered to go to Korea, mount cameras. Well, they put us on a ship, and we went over there, and they pulled in by Tokyo in the bay there, and they took me off and a couple others, and my buddy, he went over to Korea. And
Well, you were still in Tokyo.
they put me at Dakota Air Base, at FEMCOM actually, and we were doing repair work for the Air Force and the Navy, and camera factory in Japan was doing that near Tokyo.
So you were fixing cameras and repairing
They
them?
were doing it, and actually, we were hauling them in there and taking them out, hauling them, you know, a truckload a week, and they would. But after I was there a couple weeks, they moved me up to be the inspector because the fellow who was doing it was a sergeant, and he went home. I'd been there, about 3 weeks, a month. I moved into his place. Well, I was with the Materiel Command, Far East Materiel Command, but they had no inspectors under Staff Sergeant. And I said, well, I can't do this job. And he says, you're doing it, you're going to keep doing it. So they had quite a number of Japanese repairing these cameras. They'd come in, and I'd have to look at them, go through them, take them apart, or not take them apart, but see what was wrong, and tell them what to do to repair them. And I did that. I did go to Korea twice and inspect cameras or camera equipment in South Korea. And I went to see my buddy who was there that wanted me to get in the Air Force with him. Get this training. And while I was there, my brother came down from the front lines and spent a night with us, a couple nights. He says, I get to sleep on a cot. This hadn't happened for a year.
So you went to Korea just to pick up more cameras or something?
Well, we went and checked ones. The equipment, they repaired cameras there, and they had to.
These are cameras in the planes?
These were for in planes, but they had also other things to do.
Okay.
And anyway, after about a year, I kept getting complaints. These cameras weren't working right. Well, what I was familiar with, we had a camera in a B-29, and they would drop flash bombs, and the bombs would drop down almost to the ground and would explode, and then the camera would take pictures. And that was something all new to them, and the Japanese repairmen wouldn't touch them. You know, you take your hand, like flap them, they wouldn't do that. They would, because this was all something new. And what happened, the Koreans would we kept bombing their airstrips and things. And if their airstrips had great big holes in them, they couldn't take off with their airplanes. And what they would do during the day, they would stack rocks up there looked like a hole. And then at night, take them down, they could use the airstrips. So the B-29s would go in and take pictures at night, because then they would know we'll bomb the airstrip again.
Because the depth perception looked.
Yes, yes. So anyway, I got this complaint the second time. I went from where I was stationed. I jumped on the shuttle bus and went over to Yokota, and I walked into the commander there, and I says, they're complaining about the cameras not working. I'm going to go along and see it. And I can't say the man's name right now. And he says, Harris, Ted Harris was a man walking down. Take Evers along on a mission tonight. And Ted Harris happened to be a fellow who lived within a few miles of where I do. I didn't know him, but he's near Portland. I live near Portland, Oregon. And so they took me along on that mission that night with a whole crew of men, and we had flash bombs, cameras, and we got shot down.
And when was this? When was this?
This was on the midnight, the 3rd of July, 1952. No, 51. I'm sorry, 51.
The plane was shot down?
Wait a minute, no, I'll take it back. 52.
52. What kind of plane was this?
Midnight, the 3rd of July.
What kind of plane was this?
It was an RB-29. It was reconnaissance. So we took pictures. We didn't have exploding. We didn't have bombs. We just had bombs that exploded in the air. And I didn't know the name of any of the crew members except Ted Harris. And so I didn't know how to use a parachute. I didn't know anything about it. When this plane was blowing up, when I came to, a couple guys laying there dead. Most of them were gone. I saw one of them going out, and the plane was just flames coming out.
This is over North Korea?
No, it was over North Korea, pretty well, up there pretty close to China. So I jumped out of the hole. I should have jumped out feet first. I went out head first. My backpack caught. I couldn't get out. We were 4 miles up in the air.
You had a parachute on, I hope?
I had it. We just have a parachute on.
Okay.
The only one that didn't have a parachute was the area photographer, and he had to take it off because he was going back and forth. But he came in and laid on it, strapped it on quick. I knew something's going on, and they went out, and but so I learned how to use a parachute. But
You never jumped out of a plane with a parachute before?
well, no, I never been in a parachute. I took off at a B-21, and I've never landed in one. So I did, but when I was a teenager, kinda, I had a little airplane at home. I bought $200 and some, but I couldn't afford to get lessons. I took 2 lessons. That's all I could. But the second lesson, the fellow who was happened to be a very good pilot told me how to use a parachute. If you jump up, make sure your arm goes straight out, and that's all I knew. Well, when I came to hanging in that chute, I was knocked out. When I came to, I looked at it. I had this D-ring with the thing hanging in the moonlight. Well, so I.
But you pulled the pin.
If you don't pull it clear out, it would mungle. So that's all I knew about it. So I landed over there in North Korea, and I spent a day and a half trying to hide, but I was pretty well wounded. And
You
then
got
captured.
wounded from the plane exploding or something?
Well, I had shrapnel of the M36 bullets they put out exploded with magnesium. I still got a couple of pieces, and I got all the way down my right leg where the explosions. And
So the shrapnel exploded in the plane?
well, no, they were the bullets. They come
Bullets.
in, they explode. That's what makes the fire. They explode and
Oh.
make fire, and they one of them into our fuel tank.
What kind of bullets were those again?
37 millimeter magnesium. That's a Russian machine gun.
Were you flying low or something? that they
No,
hit you
we were
with these?
flying high, but there were MiGs, Russian MiG. A
they-
Russian pilot shot us down.
Russian
I
pilot.
found out years later. I went on the internet, got pictures of them even.
By a Russian MiG?
Yeah.
And who was flying that one?
I don't remember the name now, but I do have the name.
Is it Russian or?
He's a Russian, yeah, and in fact, they came over and told about it that I know a fellow, Paul Cole, went to Russia. He went through the files, and here's what happened. Had a picture of him, and the night what happened. He described our plane and the whole thing.
Wow, what? That's great that you could find that stuff out.
I went to Russia and visited back in right after the wall came down in the late '80s. I wish I'd had it then. I would have, but I got it about 2 months later. I got the information, and I would have tried to find him. But anyway,
You landed somewhere.
I landed there.
You
I
land on
landed,
your feet or your butt or your head?
I landed on my feet and then in my face because the wind blew me about 10 miles. So I was that high up, see, and we were in the wind. I was 10 miles from the pilot landed.
So what elevation did you jump out at, do you think?
About 4 miles.
20,000 feet?
Well, higher than that. We were very hard. We were over 40,000 feet high. We were almost 4 miles high. We were taking pictures.
So
We thought we were safe. We were above what the people were shooting at us from below. The guns they
Yeah,
blasted.
yeah.
It knocked us around a little bit.
Yeah,
But,
yeah. So figure about 40,000 feet,
we were way up there. I landed about 4 miles from where he did.
4 miles? Or 10 miles?
10 miles, yeah.
10 miles.
The wind blew me. I saw it when I was coming down. It was coming midnight. I thought, probably here I crossed this river. I'll get in the river and float out to the ocean, to get out. I just was in my mind. Well, pretty soon I was over the river.
Oh, so you landed 10 miles from the pilot. Wow. Now, did he land in enemy territory also?
Oh, we were way
you did.
way up north. We were
Yeah.
way up north. Yeah,
About what town was it, you think?
I can't remember. I do know there's no town close by. It's up the country, but we were up 3/4 of the way up to the Yalu River.
So you landed in North Korea,
Oh yeah, way up north. Yeah, there was no way.
not in China.
Not China.
Okay.
Not yet.
Okay. So you landed, you wrapped up your parachute and all that?
No, and I didn't realize that. I should have picked it up, and I was still able. I was pretty well beat up, but I should have hidden my parachute so they knew where I was. So, the next day when they found that parachute, I could see them searching for me. But I spent the day and a half up back in the flats trying to find something to drink, and, so burnt, and I had burns, and
So you landed, you had burns. You
Oh,
spent
I had-
1.5 days wandering or something?
well, wondering, I was trying to hide or trying to, figure what to do. Well, you know, one of the guys on our plane, he was out there 21 days before they captured him. Now these people who were on these crews, they knew there were supposed to be places to go where the crews would come and try to find him. The Americans would, and he knew where to go, and he went clear over there. They never did come and pick him up. So, but I didn't know that. I was just trying to find a way to get out and hide. There was nothing, you know. What could you eat? I drank some water out of a sewer, and that's. But, now the pilot, he was so badly burned. He went to found someone to find some help. But he was so badly burnt that he knew he couldn't live through another day.
He went to a house or something?
He found the house up, yeah, and went in and asked for help. And the woman there, you know, realized, looked at him, see his face, everything just burned so bad. They got him some help.
North Korean villager?
Yeah, they found him a doctor or something good.
Now here you are, wandering around, and what happened next?
Well, I kept, you know, I looked out there, and there's a big farmer out there waiting. I saw an old cow out there. I was going to go and try to knock the cow, but I thought somebody would shoot me. But anyway, when they found me, one thing about it, I saw them walking up to me, you know. I put my hands up. There's a crew, a bunch up, you know, and they come up with their rifles on me. As soon as I put my hands up, they turned their rifles away. So they didn't shoot me, you know, and the funny thing was, they searched me, and I had before I went on this mission, the guy said, here, take my knife. I had a big knife, I had it in my pocket, and they searched me, you know, they put them all back in my clothes.
They put your knife back in your clothes?
Yeah, I mean, they just looked at them and put everything, and they just, I guess it was no gun. Maybe that's why. Anyway, and then while they were searching me, I saw an airplane go way off. I'm standing above them. I look way off the distance over to the east, over to the west, and I see this P-51 coming in. Well, they hate P-51s because they just shoot up everything. And while they're searching me, they're all at once they hear it, and they dragged me down there, and the whole crew went together. And of course, at that time, I had bright red hair. One of them pulls his hat off and covers my head. So they couldn't see I was American. Of course, they knew if they'd come to say that, but they heard that squad of men laying there on a pile, but they had me covered up so they couldn't, you know. But the time then, he grabbed his seat, pulled over my hair, because I had bright red hair.
So there's a P-52 coming in.
They didn't want to be recognized there.
With the P-52, you said?
51 coming in, I could hear it move, and they were shooting. Oh, there was a bridge over there about a block and a half away, and they were bombing that bridge. You know, and I couldn't hear it, but the ground was just rolling, and that's what they were bombing. And of course, they knocked all the bridges out. That's what the troops crossed. So anyway, they had me there, and then they led me off to a camp, and it was noon. It was about noon when they captured me, and they handed me walk in there. It was like a building, and
what camp was this?
Oh no, it wasn't a camp. It was a house.
House,
just a house, and I was limping along, and went there and set me down, and they gave me half a can of meat.
Half a can of meat.
There.
Half a can of meat.
It was you know, like Spam or something in there with the meat. I took one taste, and I couldn't eat. I was so damn scared. I couldn't eat it. Well, I should have eaten it. It was a lot of months before I ever saw anything meat again. So anyway, then they kept me there in that house or what it was, and then that night they put me on a truck and started hauling me around. And we stopped one place. You know what that? Actually, it was the Chinese that captured me. So not the Koreans.
Okay.
I would have been killed on the spot. And anyway, they would move at night, you know, but they would move, and we had planes up there shooting all the time. Well, and they would move from one place to another, but they would shoot. They'd stop, they have to shoot, then they could shoot on to the next spot, and that's where they always move. And we stopped one place, and a couple over there, maybe it was a gal with them, they were serenading me somewhere. I didn't understand the words, you know, they were being very nice to me. So, anyway, they finally got me to I don't call it a camp. I never saw anybody. It was an interrogation center or something they had. And moved me around a little bit, but asked me questions. Eventually, I spent 7 months there in North Korea.
Was this they spoke English to you? The guys that were interrogating you spoke English?
Yes, we had one at first. First, he got me a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, and he could get me nothing. So then another one came on, and he spoke King's English, different, not American English, and I don't know where he had learned that. And now he stayed with me the rest of the time I was a prisoner. Even up in China, he went up there, but he was always with me. Forever after me, where my gun was, because all the crew members had a gun. Well, I was not a crew member, and they never believed that. Where was my gun? And so anyway, I was finally put after a couple, 3 weeks under the eaves of a house. I was never inside of a building, except twice in North Korea. I spent the first 7 months outside. And I was on the north side of a Korean house, and the eaves hung about 3 more feet, because there were dirt sides, and that kept the water off, and I was under the eaves on the north side.
They overhang quite a bit.
So it rained there, but if the water ran, it would wash the walls away, or mud. And and I was only with an American once on a truck being hauled. I saw Americans, never talked with one. I could see him in the distance, and the building where I was, you probably heard about Colonel Swabble.
No, I didn't.
Well, there's quite a things about him. He was a Marine colonel. He just took over command right on the.
Colonel Swabble?
Yep, on the South Korea.
SWABEL?
There's another letter in there, I think, but you look it up, you'll find him. And he first took command. I think the next day or something, he jumped into his fighter. There wasn't. I forget what. And he flew over, and they shot him down. And everyone, he talked a lot, but I don't think he ever gave. But I've had some Marines say, that son of a bitch. I said, that's Colonel Swabble. It was foolish how he got over there, but he was around the other side of the house. I could see him occasionally when they'd take him out. We got pee in the woods or crap in the woods once a day, and I'd see him walk in distance, but I could hear him interview him several times. And I never saw him, but he was around the corner of the house, like being around here, and I think it was quiet and I could hear him those days. And anyway, I remember hearing him complaining because he broke a tooth. The rice we had was full of rocks, and he bitched about that, and he bitched about something else, and after a while, I don't know where he went, but I could see him in this, but I never talked to one, and then later on, of course, as winter came on, then they're moved away, and I was by myself there by that house. Had a squad of men watching me.
Old Chinese.
Oh yeah, they were. Yeah, I had the Chinese. Now I got to tell you why. The second guy who was questioning me, he said, "We give you the kind treatment."
The guy with the King's English?
Yeah, and we give you the kind treatment. We're not going. First, I said, "Ask what else." He was going. He stood right there. He had 3 guys, four guys with rifles, going to shoot me if I didn't talk. Well, there was no ammunition in the gun, but it kind of scares you. Well, so he knew what the other guy had been doing, and so he just gave me the kind treatment. Well, for about 2 weeks, I was in a little grass hut out there laid on the hill. That's where they had me for a while before they got to this building. I just grass. You just lay in it, and then twice a day you got a little bit of gohan or rice. Anyway, well, get me mixed up here. He was always doing this to me and come and talk to me, and I enjoyed when he talked to me because I had to sit there at attention with my head up in the wind with my face, eyes wide open, and the guard would stand above me. The guards would be out for 2 hours, and then they would switch. They'd go back in the heated building, and I was under the eaves. But they stand there and watch me, and I had to put my head up there, and they stood, that hip was there 6 foot, and they stood above that. I had to go up there, I could see my eyes were always open, you know, and so when he'd come to interview me, I would stay and talk with him, whatever I could, because, gee, I'm seeing someone. And I remember one time he took around the front of the house, and here come a couple of Korean women, you know, once they are married or had babies, then all the breasts are exposed. And one of them sitting over there visiting, they walk miles and visit their neighbors, and sitting there, and the babies run on their back and pulling their nummies up, and I'm enjoying this. So I'm going to sit there and tell him whatever he wants, but I didn't know anything. And they always
thought you were a pilot or going back and forth or whatever.
Well, they thought that I was on this crew, and the crew didn't know me. I was being flown into China they thought I was a spy being flown into China. I stood this much taller than 90% of the Chinese. I had bright red hair, and in the month I had a bright red beard. Well, I was there 7 months. In 7 months, my beard hung, you know, way down here, bright red all over. I mean, on all this time I hadn't washed my hands even, or my face. And I was being flown into China as a spy. And one of our gunners, Koski, the top gunner, he was so sure. Of course, he saw them when they lined me up in front of the fire bus apparently, and they were going to shoot me for being a spy. He told them I was an ABC agent. And so this guy takes me, he walked me out in the woods, walks out there and gets in one of these little grass huts here, and I guess it was in October. He was sitting there, questioned me for quite a while, and must be tell me the truth, tell me what's going on, tell me where my weapon. And finally he says, "You're an ABC agent." I says, "Well, what?"
What's an ABC agent?
I said, "Well, what's an ABC agent? You are an ABC agent." And finally, I said, "What the heck is an AB?" Now, I like sitting talking because I could get out and move around and talk, interaction, you know. And he puts his fist up like this. He says, "Atomic, bacteriological, chemical. You're the agent, and you're going to die."
Atomic and biological?
Atomic, biological, and chemical. Well, years later, I went up to, he was up in Alaska, and I walked in and told Koski. And he told me, he said, after we came out, he said, "I saved your life." He did. "Yeah, they're going to shoot you if you're the spy. I told you you're an ABC agent." I says, "That was on October 18th. Well, yeah." I says, "The next day, I just about got killed."
Oh, my God.
But he was trying to save my life. And this got off course, but he lived in Alaska, and I flew up to Alaska, but a guy who went into the Kremlin and got this information out, everything that was said, and I took this up, gave it to him. And, you know, and he was taught, if you get captured, you make up stories. And he told about having dirt strips in the Russia where they're going to land B-29s and things. And I brought this out. He went back in the room and sat there for an hour. I came back. "Yeah, Gene," he says, "I told him a hell of a lot more too." Anyway, I got all these papers that came out of Russia. This guy went and did some stuff and brought them back and showed them, mailed them to me, you know. And so anyway, this is when all the fun happened. So anyway, I spent outside for 7 months. So that was July through January, under the building, and it got pretty cold up in northern Korea.
They had you outside that time?
Under the eaves of the building. And the worst part, they're probably not familiar with, in North Korea, most houses are built with a blank floor. The kitchens are outside, so when they cook the kitchen, the heat goes underneath and keeps the floor warm, especially the bedrooms and living room, and that's why they would go in the house. And the Korean family there, of course, was pushed out. They would come in once in a while. I'd see them, and so my thing there was up, raised that blanket underneath, and it was fixed so you could light a fire under it. Well, they never lit a fire under it, so the air blew under it. So I could sit on it, but it was so damn cold. And they put a twigs or branch trees and twined it together on two sides of me, and then a gate on this side, so I couldn't just walk off, see? So, but I still laid on that damn thing, and I mean, that was so cold, because you can figure out what happened. I had piles pretty bad when I got home, sitting there in that cold. I mean,
You were basically outside.
well, and the thing was, I'm telling you things I shouldn't tell you now, but I never washed my hands all the time I was a prisoner, except once when I scooped some water out of a creek. I started washing. I never had toilet paper. I ate with my hands. Sometimes they give you a spoon or chopstick, but usually eat your hands. But when I went out there once a day, I was only allowed to go out to the bathroom once a day. They'd walk out there, and I mean, when I had them piles so bad, can you imagine the pile, my poop, and the pile of blood in the snow? Because I wiped with snow if I had, and that scared me. And you're
Seeing the
bleeding, and you don't know why.
Sort of blood, yeah.
Yeah, but details.
Wow. That's good
So
detail.
anyway, this happened along in. By the way, I got to tell you something else. I said I didn't get any meat. Well, for Christmas, the Chinese, there's a squad like 12 or 13, and you know when they cook out the great big old pot, they cook rice and they cook it out, and they had an old pig tied out there, an old mama pig with a rope around her right behind her front legs, I guess, and big old mama pig, and of course they would give her the waste. They don't waste anything, and Christmas they come out there and they says. I got some of the Christmas joy with them. I got a pig's tip. It was that square of fat with the pig sticking out of it on some rice, and it was cold. I did get some more meat.
Oh, boy.
That was about an inch
That
square.
was your Christmas Day gift?
That was well, yeah. They were having their Christmas. Well, they were sharing with the American, the Christians in China wanted us to share with them here. So.
Oh my God, that was your...
But I ate it. But that's the first meat I got again. So I think about that can of meat I didn't eat, that someone had eaten half of, but I think about it often. I go, well, an old pig's tit, but it was sure good. It was
Wow.
so fat. So anyway, I had a blanket, one quilt. I laid on a thing, the quilt half on top, half under me. And you know, they had cotton in it, the stuffing just real light thin with cotton in, about 6 inches square. Well, a couple square, they forgot to put the cotton in. Well, I put that over me, and they made me take my clothes off at night, and finally it was so damn cold and freezing. You know, we had stuff, and I forgot. He's going to stand there with his bayonet, and I said, well, I'm going to die. I might as well die right now. I ain't going to, you know, I'm going to freeze to death. And finally he backed off and let my work. Well, the thing was, they don't want you to big up, try to escape.
They take your shoes? They take your shoes?
I had my shoes yet that I wore. I still had them. They gave me some other shoes, but I wore them. They were heavier.
So you were in your underwear pretty much. And
Yeah, they weren't wore out because I didn't walk in them very much. But anyway, I covered that up at night, and then we had one guard who was very mean. I've got bayonet marks on my left leg here where he's jabbed me, and so cold at night. By the way,
this is a Chinese guard,
Chinese,
right?
yes. Couple were very, very nice, you know, but there's one, he was a big tall one, and he was, I had my head up, my head was down, and when I got up to China, he was there too, a sucker. But anyway, I pulled this blanket over my head to keep warm, and it froze from my breath. And I woke up out of air, and he happened to be guarding it. I'm flailing my arms, and he's got the flashlight jabbing me. I'm jabbing me with the bayonet, and but it froze. But there was on the outside, away from the wall, from my breath, there was about 2.5 inches of spot from my breath freezing on there. And so this happened, and so. But we had some pretty cold weather for a while. I came home and I asked, and the guy in Tokyo, they told me, yeah, you had very cold. He said, you couldn't live outside. So anyway, in the January, I don't remember the exact dates, they told me, pick up your things. Oh, by the way, a little funny thing, this interrogator, you know, I'm sitting there all this time, I got time to think here, I hear trains, then I hear an airplane come over. Well, you know, they bombed the train, so the train would, there's a tunnel over there, I could hear it, and you pull it to the tunnel, and the plane would fly away, and you wait a few minutes, first thing you hear the train come out, choop, choop, then you hear the bomb scene. Well, I hear this, so I asked him, food, we had, real buggy, bad food. I says, I guess the trains are kind of getting your crews, your food's getting bad. Next day I had some pretty good food, but he knew, he figured I had a telephone, a radio, you know, and I asked some other things. Well, you hear these things going on, you've got times I think about it, and he knew I had a radio in someplace, so like once or twice he had me taken away with the guard, and they would go through the wall, and I knew the hole they had picked out, so I knew
They were looking.
he knew it, and so I never did. But you have a lot of times you got to keep your mind busy.
Yeah, so you just
So
observe it.
anyway, we came.
The end of January?
This was earlier than that, but in January he came over and told me to pick up my things. And you know, I had a watch when I was captured, and I had my identification stuff. They gave those to me, my old dirty handkerchief, and they picked it up, and I gave those to me and picked up my stuff, and they put me on the back of a Jeep at 5:30 in the evening, and they threw something over me, pushed my head between my knees. Well, first they shackled my leg, my knees, handcuffed me, and then threw my hands over my knees and put my head between my knees. And I don't know if they sat on me or what. They pushed my head between my knees, and so that
They
was.
didn't want you looking at anything.
Well, right, and keeping hid, and started driving. Well, they gave me my watch, so I had the time. It was 5:30 in the evening, and I don't remember the exact date now, but I do if I think a while. And so it was 28 hours later, and then we'd drive, and then you'd go a while, and then they would stop, and they would stop and shoot. You know, and
What were they shooting at?
Well, they had a signal to the next one that were going to come through.
23 hours you're in the Jeep?
28 hours.
28 hours.
Yeah, I was 5:30, so it was 11:30 something, 11:30. It was 28 hours. But once we crossed the Yellow River, I could tell that, because then things changed and people are happy, and you're here sailing on the road once in a while. But I was not moved from that position. And so, like I say, I could see my watch under here when daylight. That's all I could do. But I had, I was down like this. Well, I'll tell you now, they broke my neck on the way up there. Well, pressure. Third vertebrae, they cracked.
From hitting you? They hit you
And
too?
they just pushed me down, or they're sitting on me, or whatever. I don't know how many guys in an old Russian Jeep. And the other part is, it's an old Russian Jeep with no muffler, all that gas and dust. And I got up there, and probably stopped. They got up, a couple of them talked, and they picked me up, turned me up. This ankle, this wrist right here. Wait a minute, where's my scar? It was frozen on me. They pulled the and turned me around, stood up, and I said, "Oh, a great big concrete! I'm going inside." That's all I thought, and that's all I remember. I passed out apparently, and when I came to, I was laying on the floor in there, and it was a Japanese-built prison during World War II. They'd built that, and so I hadn't seen inside, but now I was inside. Okay, I said I was only inside of a building twice.
So you wound up in a Chinese prison?
It was in Mukden, China. And I'll tell you how I got there, why I know. I was taken in into a Korean building one time to be
Mukden?
Mukden. It's different. It's the capital of Manchuria, but the name has changed now. That was the capital of Manchuria.
M-U-K-T-E-N?
M-U-K-D-E-N, but they have changed the name now, but that is the capital of Manchuria. I was taken inside the building twice. One time they was interviewing me, but the other time this this interrogator, he always said, I'm the kind one. He said, I'm the kind one. I said, if you're so damn kind, how come you won't take this metal out of me? It's been festering, and I've dug most of them. He walked away, and next morning a guard gives me a note, follow me. Well, I got up, and he points his bayonet. Well, follow me, did he? I can't follow him.
He's pushing you.
And so I walked about an hour and a half or something. This guard followed me, and found up this little door up there, on this little valley, opened this door, and he pushed me inside, and two of them jumped on top of me, sat on top of me. I had no idea what I was going to do there.
What the heck were they jumping on top of you for?
Well, they pushed me inside this door, and this little building was about 8 foot, at the most, 8 foot square with this door in it, with a dirt floor, but it had fresh dirt on it. Well, it was an operating room. When they get dirty, they put fresh dirt. I've seen them do it. But anyway, the doctor walked in. I didn't know he was a doctor, but they got out of there. And he was a doctor trained in Japan, so I knew enough Japanese that he says, we could operate on you. Oh, and so I flicked my foot around like that, and he gave me a shot. And,
Japanese doctor.
yeah, and he took the metal out and put 4 stitches or something in there. And
He give you anesthetic or anything?
yeah, oh yeah, he did. But see, they just, two of them sat on top of me. I had no idea what I was doing there. They just shoved me down in the dirt. And,
Then they left.
well, so he walked in, he told me to get out of there. Yeah. So he didn't have to. But anyway,
I wonder if they thought that they were just going to have the metal taken out without anesthesia.
well, I don't know. I didn't know why I was there even.
Maybe they're going to hold them down while they got the bayonet and dig it out.
So anyway, he put 4 stitches in, and I thanked him. And oh man, I says, it was just festering and ooze running out of there all the time. And that's been 2-3 months of it, and some of them I dug out. And I dug a couple out, bigger than this finger. I dug out.
Man.
They were up in the leg here. But so anyway, he says, you're welcome. You can go back home now. Go back. And so the
Back home.
Back. The guards took me. Well, of course, by then it's noon, or about noon, late afternoon, and the American airplanes are out there shooting anything that moves. And so
Where'd they take you?
So it didn't take me long to get back, but I had the stitches were all pulled out when I got there.
They took you to the outside of the prison again, or?
Oh no, this was no prison. We're just up in some hills.
Oh.
Yeah, there was no other prisoners around. I was never in a prison. There was no. It was. They said it was an indoctrination center, or
You said it was a old Chinese prison or something?
no, there was no prison there. All there was this family house.
He's talking about earlier. This is when you went back there to where you got operated on. That was
No, that was just a little shack up in the up.
Oh, you got operated on a shack.
Little shack up a canyon, a little house there by itself, and I think there was a family house beside it or something. But a Korean family, and where I was, there was a Korean family, and there were some other prisoners there for a little while, and then they were all gone. But there was I never saw a prison camp, never ever. And so when I got back, they were out, and stitches were out, so I got it. It's healed up. I got a scar there, but so anyway, they keep me there in the
Kept in this village house?
That was not a village, just a house out in the farm.
Wow.
Yeah, it was just a farmhouse out there.
Okay.
Yeah, from that house you could see no other up this valley, No village, no people.
Just
but
a big old farmhouse.
I see the women come in, their family lived there, other families came in, they'd come and visit there once in a while, and then leave, always in daylight, But I never saw any other houses.
So you stayed there for a long time?
I was there for 7 months.
7 months. And
So the end of January, they told me to pick up my things and load me in a Jeep. That's when I went I went to China. And when I was in there, the same interrogator came in, and he says to me, "Do you know where you are?" And I said, "Moncton." He said, "How'd you know that?" Oh, and he slapped his face. And that's the only reason I know it's Moncton. And how did I know that? I didn't know that. But I'm sitting there by myself. I'm hearing jet airplanes. Well, the only city I could think of was Moncton, where there'd be an airport. I could hear him sitting, it's the airport there. And so when he said that, I knew it wasn't Moncton. Otherwise, I would have no idea. And okay, I spent 7 months there.
In Moncton.
Well, that was not a POW camp. Okay, it was a prison, I guess. It was not a POW camp. And that was an old Japanese built for Chinese prisoners with individual cells.
And
And
did they keep you there? They kept you at that
I was there 7 months.
in the cells.
I never saw daylight. Now I had a door. They let you out once a day. Walk down a hall and you squat over a hole in the floor. Do your pooping. You got, in the morning, a Chinese cup of rice gruel. And then towards evening, you got either some steamed bread or some steamed rice. And 1 cup of water. One little Chinese cup.
You were there 7 months.
Well, you only went potty once a day, and you had now all the time I was there, I only went out twice, one time. And I had diarrhea. I had my same clothes on I'd always worn. I didn't want to poop in them. And I finally got him to take me down there, and I had gas. I got some bayonet marks on the way back. Now, there were 10 cells in a row. The cells on either side of me were Chinese prisoners. One on the left had, I think, 3 of them in there. I could hear them talk to them, see. They never talked to me. But this particular guard who was so mean to me all the time was there. And I had, I'm talking 7, 8, 9 months of red beard. You couldn't hardly just see my eyes. But I'd sit on the floor against the wall back there and I twiddled my thumb. And he goes, "Sst." Well, they had a boardwalk down there, where they walk back and forth checking these cells. And he'd stop and talk at the cells once in a while in Chinese, so I knew I had Chinese prisoners there. And he'd take them out, they'd run down to the potty, and I could tell, of course, 3 of them. But anyway, I would know if I was quiet, I know he's gonna sneak up and look in that little hole, watch me through the door. And I twiddled my thumb. He says, "Shh." So that night when I reached out for my cup through that hole, he dumped it on the floor out of my reach. But he was pretty beat.
That's the same guy at the other place that
so
kept
the
poking
next
you at
day,
that house?
I'm sitting on the floor with my hands behind my back. And I'll bet you 20 times in his 2-hour time he snuck up there and looked at me. And I'm sitting here, you couldn't put your head up. You had your head up. And I'm twiddling my thumb, see, behind my back. And I'm saying, "You son of a bitch." And if he walked in now, I'd kill that son of a bitch. I know he's dead now, but he seemed to enjoy that. But anyway, I did a few wrong things, and I was there about 2 months, and they put me in a different cell. That was even worse. It was a little bitty thing, but
Put you in a small cell.
Huh?
They put you in a tiny cell.
Well, this cell was bigger, and he had a big door to walk out. The one they put me in, the door was about this high by this wide. I had to crawl in and out of, but I wouldn't do what they said, apparently. And so I spent the last, I guess, 5 months in that one. And I found out later none of the POWs were in those. Those were Chinese punishment shells. I found out later. Not just a few years ago, but some of the guys had water and sinks in their cells. I never had that. Even Ted Harris told me that. He said, well, I guess I still do. He said, I always had water. You could wash. By the way, Moreland's 2 granddaughters are there at us today, and daughters, you know. And he told me once, well, I guess I shouldn't, but Moreland always had a little better. He was our engineer on the plane. And they said, well, he talked too much probably, but he had a better cell. But I didn't know they had water in their cells. I never did.
These were your American
These
friends?
are on my crew, the
Okay.
crew that survived, yeah.
And they were at the same place that you were.
Yeah, I didn't know that till we came out.
Oh my
When they
God.
took me out of they took me out of that bad one. There was 2 other guys from our plane in that same one. They took us out and put us on the jeep to take us to the train. And they came out there, and I didn't know where the rest were. Yeah,
Did they had sink in the toilet or a hole in the floor or something that you didn't?
Well, no, they had water. They had a sink. The other, but these cells, I don't. These were pretty bad ones. They were. Anyway, I had a trial while I was there. Took me out to some room, and there were asked me all kind of questions. You know, where my gun was, where my radio is. They never believed that I was just a camera inspector, joining of the planes. They never believed that. And I found out years later, when I was home, that people who got the papers out of Russia have pictures of who was taken on my trial, and there was Russians involved. And I said, wait a minute, they were all Asian. He says, Mr. Evers, don't you realize a good part of Russia is Asian? Because I said that crowd sitting in there, I'm sitting on the floor, I'm sitting on a little strip of wood about that thick. That's what I'm sitting on. And then the officer in charge, he's sitting on a big chair above you, and then this whole crew sitting back there, and that's where I always had to sit. And but I picked, you know, I could look over them. So I had quite a time of my trial. So
What was the determination there?
I was going to die at hard labor in the mines.
That was your
That's
sentence?
what he told me. I was going to die at hard labor in the mines. But you know, I had all this time to think to yourself. You don't want to go crazy, so I did a little planning, you know, on this type of thing, and I didn't even know the rest of the crew was there in China with me until we came out. And you know, I didn't know the war was over even until a couple months later, when the Korean War ended.
When were you released? You got out, meaning you were released, right?
Well, they came out and they sent me to the hospital in Tokyo. All the Korean War prisoners were shipped home by ship ahead of that. I don't remember. 53.
53. So they were getting you ready for release. They were feeding you a little bit better.
Yeah, feeding me a little better, and then one day, a fella came in and cut my hair, cut my beard off. With a straight edge razor, he even clipped inside my ears. I mean, my God, I sat there like he's going to cut my throat. They were cleaning you up, so I said, well, and then they brought me in a new uniform. I had this blue uniform. They had a brand new one. And a couple of days later, they come in here, and I had to be dressed up in that new one, clean, hair combed nice, and hey. Went out there and they hauled me down to the train. Put me on a train. Oh, here's other 2 crew members on the train.
From the plane that crashed.
Yeah, well, the crane blew up.
Yeah.
Well, we were all out when it crashed.
And 2 crew members?
Yeah, and we had this whole train car. There were 3 of us in it. I'm in the center, one behind and one in front. And there's a guard by each of us. We can't turn. We can't look at each other.
3 people in the whole car.
In that whole car. And my gosh, they served me some meat. We got down to Panmunjom, and they hauled us out from the train there over to a camp, put me in a tent, and then they came over the next morning.
In a tent, you said?
In a tent, all by myself. Well, it was where the prisoners had been down where they tented them before they transferred them. I found out later. And anyway, they brought us out there, and next morning they come out and picked me up and they walked me out. And went out there, and here's all the crew except for Harris. And they had a bunch of photographers over there. They were Polish photographers, so they had us all decorated, looking nice, you know. And they had these three Polish photographers. They're taking pictures, you know, at stands, and
They brought you to the the exchange area.
exchange area, and as we stopped there, he got off and he handed his clipboard to the American general.
Handed him what?
A clipboard. And he looked and he says, "Who the hell are you guys? But welcome back." And, well, we were never listed as prisoners of war, see? We were never on the list. He said, "But welcome back." And then Ted Harris refused to come, our pilot, because of the statement they read, that we had confessed. And he says, "I will not go back under those conditions," and we did never confess to those things. And they finally threw him in the Jeep, and he grabbed hold of the Jeep, and it tore this Russian Jeep, and something pulled some tin loose or something, and the driver, he just about died, you know, his Jeep. He says, so I got in and brought him back, but you know, they came with three of them to pick him up, and he just held on the Jeep and tore part of the hood or something off. So he came back. So he was the last man to come back from the Korean exchange.
That you were a prisoner for
14 months.
14 months.
I had a very short time compared to a lot of the guys carried there for almost 3 years. A lot of them died there in the prison camps.
Did you get any medals for all this stuff? Or
Oh, I got an air medal for that. But
air medal?
I finally, several years later, I got a Purple Heart.
The most memorable part of your Korean War experience, you had said something about going back, reading their Stars and Stripes, and they wouldn't believe you had a broken neck. What any other memorable part of the Korean War experience that you would like to tell anybody in the future? Kids, people are going to be watching this video for a long time. Would you like to say anything about your Korean War experience besides what we just said about?
When I went over there before I was captured, you know, I visited a couple of times, and I saw little Korean kids starving to death, sitting along the road. I think about that often, and I think of what the South Korean people keep saying to us now. How can we thank you? How can we thank you enough? You know, I've seen so many of them, and look what we got. And you know what kind of a system they got there now. So I think we did something.
What would you like the people to remember you and all the rest of the soldiers about the Korean War? What would you, like I said before, what would you like to say?
I hope we did the right thing. There's lots of atrocities happen that shouldn't. I didn't lose so many buddies, but I've been to this POW thing, and I know some who've seen so many of their fellows gunned down, and I hope they're thankful for what they were doing there. And it isn't all thrown away uselessly.
There's been some talk, you probably heard it, that the Korean War is referred to as the Forgotten War. What would you like to say about that, or how would you try to change things?
I mentioned that today at one of our things. I said, "What's the Vietnam War?" I said, "What?" I said, "Well, they always asked what the Korean War was, but it was so soon after World War II. But I think we did a wonderful thing. We solved some things. I hate to think of where the Russians would have been now if we hadn't stopped that. They were coming clear down. They were going all around, That was one of the things that was to stop.
To stop the Russians.
You know, the North Koreans were all had Russian tanks at that time already.
Yeah.
That was a big push.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you for coming. It was a wonderful.
I wish I could remember some of them details, and you know, I'm getting that age where sometimes they don't know what the details are, but the next day they all come to you.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.